Most home cooks think that getting dinner on the table is a cooking problem, but it isn't. It's a timing problem. It comes from trying to finish four things at the same time and not having a plan for what order they should happen in. In this episode, I'm going to give you that plan. Okay, here's what a bad weeknight looks like. In this case, we're making a chicken recipe, a polenta recipe, a vegetable, and a salad. So I'll use that as an example. Okay, let's start with the chicken. It's almost done, but the polenta is getting cold. And the salad is sitting on the counter and getting very wilted because you've already dressed it and you're already apologizing before anybody sits down to eat. That's not a skill problem. You might know how to cook. It's a sequencing problem. Most home chefs are never taught the right way to organize themselves, which is to think backwards, which is the way most professional chefs think of cooking. Let me take you back to a childhood memory. It begins early on a Sunday morning. I'm at my friend's house, my next door neighbor. Her mom is an Italian immigrant, so is her dad. And her mom's in the kitchen making her famous tomato sauce as well as other dishes. And I didn't need to come to their kitchen to know this because the entire neighborhood smells like the tomato sauce. It permeated everybody's home and nobody complained. I'm sitting like a fly on the wall in the corner and I'm watching her very intently to see how she's going to make this meal. She's going to be preparing a meal for her 6 children. They're all pretty much grown up, but this is the one time during the week that they all come together and connect. There's no timer going off every 5 minutes. She moved through that kitchen like she had a map that no one but she could see. She did have a map actually, but it was a mental map. And there were so many things going on. There was something in the oven, there was something on top of the stove, there was something already on the counter that was prepared. It was all getting done and she wasn't working up a sweat. And by the time her kids came through the door, everything was ready and she could be present and enjoy their company. And the whole family could gather around the table and really have a great evening together because everything landed at once. All the dishes were ready and she was ready as well. What I was watching was a woman who had never been taught this, but it knew it from many years of cooking. What she knew was that being a cook is almost like being a conductor. She was able to get everything on the table and orchestrate this meal beautifully. This experience has stayed with me throughout my life. It stayed with me through the years that I was struggling as a restaurateur. It has stayed with me when I transitioned into becoming a private chef for high-profile clients. What I admired in her was her composure and her presence and her ability to arrive at her own table. So my chaos and her inspiration has created the systems that I'm now going to be sharing with you. These are systems that are simple enough for a home chef. They're fast and they're easy, and I think they're easy to understand once you open your mind and decide that you'd like to transform what you're doing from chaos to control. Hi, I'm Chef Rene. I'm a private chef and former restaurateur. I created this channel to help you think different about cooking. There are a lot of channels out there on YouTube and a lot of cookbooks, a lot of marvelous cooking shows, and they focus on recipes and science and techniques. And it's a wonderful knowledge bank. There's so much to be learned. But this channel is addressing a different issue. What I'm sharing on this channel are systems and patterns and real stories that are going to help you cook in your real life. In my first episode, I talked about how stress in the kitchen has nothing to do with recipes. I'm continuing on with that theme in this episode, and I'm going to be getting specific in terms of a menu here. Timing a menu is a hot topic, And I know that a lot of people struggle with it. So I'm really looking forward to sharing my ideas on how to help you solve that problem. It isn't about cooking faster. It's about cooking in the right order. Let me explain what I mean by that. Most cooks start at the beginning. They open up the recipe, the menu, and they just go. But professional chefs don't do that. They start backwards. That's how professional cooks think. Let me walk you through this. They start by thinking what has to be done in the last 15 minutes. Then they work backwards from there. So, practically speaking, let's use the chicken piccata as an example. This is a recipe that cannot be done ahead of time. It has to be done at the very last 15 minutes of the meal. But the other components in the meal, the polenta and the cooked vegetable, in this case it's a green bean, and the salad can definitely be made ahead of time. So once again, your focus is only on that last 15-minute menu item. It's not spread across all the menu items because that's impossible to juggle. You work backwards. The salad is prepped. The green beans are prepped and ready to be blanched on the stove. The polenta is pretty much cooked. And even if it's a little bit thick before you're done with the chicken, you can loosen it up with a liquid that of your choice. You can use chicken broth or just water, and you can bring it back to life pretty easily. So don't fuss about the polenta. You can make that work. So all of that stuff happens first. And again, the only thing you're focusing on is the last 15 minutes of cooking whatever dish, in this case it's this chicken dish, that really need your last minute attention. And this single shift in thinking, working from the end to the beginning, will transform your experience in the kitchen. You stop reacting to what's happening and you start conducting it. But working backwards is only half the problem. You need to know what dishes will hold and which dishes won't. This is the way I'd like to explain this part of the problem. Let's think of this as each dish having its own personality. Some dishes are patient, some dishes are not. Some dishes are demanding, and some will sit quietly in the corner, kind of like what I did when I was watching my neighbor cook. Others will fall apart before you even know it. So who's patient in this recipe? So the polenta, pretty patient. Salad, very demanding. It wants to be dressed at the last moment or it's going to disintegrate. And once again, the chicken piccata needs your last minute attention. It's not going to be forgiving if you start multitasking. So when you know the personality of each dish, you stop guessing, and then you are accommodating those differences and you're in control. You start placing them exactly in the right order. That's the pattern beneath this meal and many meals that you're going to be making. Once you acknowledge it and learn it from this example, you can apply it to any meal that you're making. I have a free resource that I'd like to offer you. It's my Calm Kitchen cheat sheet. It refers exactly to this menu, but again, it can be applied to any menu, and it'll walk you through the steps of what I'm talking about. It's a written form if people like that, and you can put it on your counter, you can tack it on your fridge, and it'll reinforce what I'm talking about in this video. So just grab it, it's free, and it will help you. Okay, so once again, once you know the personality of each dish, the sequence writes itself. The problem that most chefs make is that they treat each item menu the same. They're not. Some need heat, some need your hands, and confusing these personality types is what creates the chaos. Okay, here's the practical application. Start your polenta first. It goes low and slow. Then shift your attention to the salad. Prep it up, stick it in the fridge, keep it crispy. Get the green beans prepped, and you can put them on the stove, even with a pat of butter in a pot, ready to be blanched. So the meal's pretty much taken care of except for that last that last chicken recipe. I want to share an experience that I had in my own restaurant. Um, it was not the best moment. I was panicked. I had a full room. I had a room full of people who were hungry, and I was losing it. I was losing my mind. My dishwasher had quit. The chef that I hoped I was working with had gotten sick. I was on my own juggling things with my boyfriend, who didn't have a clue about cooking, but he wanted to help me. So there we were struggling along, and I was, I was having a hard time, and I was really worried that I was going to disappoint people. But I try to remember in those moments my neighbor, who had been so calm and so composed and so happy while she was cooking all these different dishes for her family. And that's when I realized I had to come up with a cooking system, because I needed my life back. I needed my sanity back. And I believe that a lot of people feel that way. So cooking systems are not boring and dry and maybe nerdy. They work. So sequence your meal and get everything done as much as you can before you have to work on that last demanding dish. And those final moments will belong to you, because this is so important. I've been to so many dinner parties in my life and made so many meals for people. And I've realized that the most important thing is not actually the food. It's the cook and how they feel about themselves when they're serving and when they're ready to sit down and eat. If you come to the table overwhelmed and working up a sweat and feeling nervous and crazy, that is going to spill over into the experience of your guests or your family, whoever you're with. Actually, the most important thing you bring to the table is you. It's yourself, present and unhurried and happy and in control. And you can do that too, you just need a sequence. Okay, before we eat, here's a little history. I'm fascinated by food, not just recipes as I've mentioned before. Food has a fascinating story. It's a fascinating journey, and it's a fascinating universe. It's a world that I've been in for decades, and I never get tired of it. It's because there's so many layers to it. For instance, in this menu, there's the chicken. It's very ubiquitous. Everybody takes, chicken for granted. It's everywhere. It's the most consumed protein on the planet. But chicken has a pretty interesting history. It started out as a skinny little bird in Southeast Asia. It's been at the center of human tables for over 8,000 years. It's landed on every cuisine on the planet. And why is that? It's because it's humble. It's adaptable and so versatile. And it's pretty forgiving in certain recipes. Let's move on to the word piccata. Well, what does that mean? It means piquant, which means sort of sharp and bright and alive. It's a technique that's very simple. It's born out of 3 ingredients: lemon, butter, and capers, which are indigenous to the Mediterranean climate. And those 3 ingredients create a magical experience that's worth celebrating. It started out as peasant cooking, but it became elevated through time and through techniques, very easy techniques in some ways, not through expensive additions. And it's still true today, and that's why it belongs in this series. 3 ingredients, thousands of years of history, and tonight, the centerpiece of your sequence. This is what I hope you take away from this episode. You learned a chef tip, which is reading a menu backwards. You learned about the importance of sequencing, and you learned to protect the last 15 minutes of that process. Okay, the first gives you a plan. The second gives you an order. But if you don't protect those final 15 minutes, the whole thing falls apart. These 3 things don't work alone. They work as a system together. Time doesn't happen to you. Time is an ingredient that you control. So what we solved today, you don't need more recipes. You just need a plan. That's how professional kitchens work. My restaurant taught me how cooking under pressure can drive you crazy if you let it. My neighbor showed me what it looks like when you get it right. The next episode is going to deal with the nights when you really just can't cook. We all have them. I've had many of those nights. After cooking all day, I've come home to a hungry kid, and I've had to explain to her that mommy's tired and we need to make something, but it's going to be pretty simple. So ironically, even though she had a mom who was a chef, we had some very basic meals. I'll get more into that in the next episode. I'm sure you can relate to that. We're all busy, and some nights dinner just almost doesn't happen. So remember, cook smart, cook well, and cook for your real life. And if you'd like, I have a newsletter that comes out once a week. It reinforces the ideas that I talk about in the videos. Thanks for your time, and thanks for watching all the way to the end.